All right, we are live and welcome back.
I
Thank you
know.
again to all of you who tuned into my virtual book launch party yesterday from 6 to 9 p.m. and tuned in earlier today when we had three other live streams. I literally did about 6 hours of live streaming yesterday. And you know what? I'm ready for more today. And I'm so excited to share Kirsten.
Keirsten, we're close. We're
Oh
close.
my gosh, Kirsten. She told me before the interview, I was like, I'm gonna butcher it, and she told me, and I still messed it up.
It
Um,
happens all the time.
yes. We're so excited. She's the founder and CEO of LRT Sports. She also helps all athletes with understanding college athletes by writing for the Huddle. Being the chief executive officer of LRT Sports means that Kirsten is the one held accountable for the success of the company's efforts across the board. Playing varsity tennis, which we're going to talk about a little bit, and soccer for Skidmore College in New York has given her the endurance to be able to push the company to the next level day in and day out. Kirsten has also completed the Harvard Business Analytics program, which is why she's a smart person and I'm not, because I can barely say her name, which has taken her data analytics skills to the next level. I love this girl's energy, her personality. I also love the solutions that they provide to athletes. And we've talked on several occasions, and I'm excited to share you with our audience today. Guys, you know what the drill is. If you are tuning in now, thank you. And it's time to host a watch party. This watch party will notify all of the people on your timeline that this is content worth listening to. You get to pick the brain of someone much smarter than me. And that doesn't usually happen,
That's not
because
true.
I'm definitely the sharpest crayon in the box, right? Not. So yeah, you guys get to listen in and we get to learn from her today, hear about her story. So go ahead and host a watch party. And if you haven't already my team is on it today. Look at them. If you haven't already, go support the book, go grab you a copy. 100% of all the proceeds that we make in the first week of the book launch, we're donating to inner city youth sports programs. So, in honor of the late Elder Mike White and his legacy to serve student athletes, specifically in inner city youth programs, we are giving 100% of our proceeds. And when you do that, you get access to all of the bonuses, the first 5 lessons of my Purpose Made Profitable course, my exclusive interview with the co-founder of Sports One Marketing, David Meltzer. You get a copy of the ebook so that you can take it wherever you want to go. And you get access to all of the replays of the experts, the former pro athletes, the trainers, and the solo videos that I've done. As all of the replays will be delivered directly to you. So, all right, I'm done yakking. That's enough about me. Kirsten, that's it, right?
No.
Oh my gosh. I'm
It's
not saying your name.
Kirsten. It's okay. I blame my parents, honestly. Just think
Kirsten,
of an ear. Just
Kirsten,
think of it. Yeah, yep. But
here,
it's okay. I get it so
ear,
much.
here,
Yeah, yeah,
Kirsten. Will you,
yeah.
okay, forgive me for being, I blame it on the
Oh,
6 hours
it's
of live
okay.
streaming yesterday.
That too. That too. That's tough. I understand that pain.
So that's my long 3-minute intro, but our guests want to hear from you today. So let us know a little bit about your journey through sports. What was that like, and what was your athletic days like?
Yeah, great questions. But I'm the CEO and founder of LRT Sports. So basically, what we do is we help athletes and families understand in the process of understanding college athletics, and we do this through a couple different things. But the biggest thing that we provide is college athletes are able to rate their college coaches, so that the next generation of student athletes are able to see what types of programs or coaches that they're actually committing to. So we're all about providing firsthand information, stories, education, and everything that we do primarily relies on experiences from current and former student athletes, coaches, and anybody else that's gone through the recruiting process. So that's kind of a little bit about LRT Sports. But as mentioned, I played tennis and soccer at Skidmore. And my journey with sports was definitely very interesting, because I was in a situation where I was a recruited tennis player and then ended up quitting after my freshman year. And then I was a walk-on soccer player for my last 3 years. So I actually up and switched sports, which is not that common. But that is just a little bit about the journey as far as being a college athlete from my perspective is concerned. And I loved Skidmore. So that's why I decided to stay instead of transferring.
Wow. And what was the differences between the schools in terms of culture?
No, so I stayed at the same school. I just switched teams.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I just
Gotcha.
went from a tennis player into a soccer player. So
You're a
I
boss.
stayed at the school because I loved the school, which I can thank my parents for because they had me really focusing on the school for the school during my recruiting process, which was super, super important to me, obviously. But the team culture was different, though, going from an individual sport to then playing on a team sport. That was obviously a big, big shift.
Yeah. What do you think you learned from your days of being active in competitive sports?
I think I learned a lot. First and foremost, how to collaborate in the working environment is definitely like a huge thing. I think people take for granted the fact that you're always working on a team, and even though it's your career, you're still, working with other individuals to achieve your career goals, but also the career goals or the main goals of the company as well. So I think making sure that you have healthy competition, but also you're supporting your staff and the people that surround you every single day, I think is the most important thing. And the same goes for being a college athlete as well.
Right. I love it. And what would you say is your favorite sports memory before we get into more LRT stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in particular my sophomore, no, was it? Yeah, my sophomore year we made it to NCAA's. No, actually, that's not my favorite sports memory. My favorite sports memory is my senior year because you got to go out with a bang. We broke the school record for the most unbeaten games in Skidmore
Really?
soccer's history. So that was a really cool moment. And just going through the season, making it to NCAA's with my team and kind of having that whole like season, I guess, together was really, really awesome. It wasn't one particular like game or anything, but it was just the leadership that we had from the captains, and everything from the freshmen all the way up to the coaching staff was just so, it was one of those teams where you just like can't repeat. It was just, a time and a place where it just all kind of worked together and everybody was there for the same goal. So that was a really cool thing to be a part of.
Hmm. Love it. Love it. Love it. I love talking to former athletes, man, because we have high energy. We have grit and discipline and tenacity and all these things when we enter into the workforce. Talk about your journey from sports to kind of where you're at today.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that I started my company was to help athletes get more information because I felt like during my recruiting process, I didn't have enough. So without sports, I wouldn't have a company. But it just was a great process, great transition. I think, as you mentioned earlier, sports just teach you so much as far as being a successful person in the workforce, but also more importantly, starting your own company, being an entrepreneur, and understanding kind of the sacrifice and everything that you need to kind of go through in order to accomplish your goals. So I think those are some really important things that you kind of learn as an athlete, and then it translates very easily over to. And I know that's stuff that you focus on a ton, and we've sent your resources to a lot of our interns that have been through our internship program and everything. And I think that's just why what Second Chance Athletes does and what you do is just so great, because there's a lot of translation between the two, but at the same time, you have to realize like you still need to hone your skills a little bit. And it's always great to have support and hear from stories of other people that have been through it as well.
Yeah, love it. Man, talk about LRT. And one of the things that I think is just really cool is the ability to rate your coach. And we talked about this on the phone when we were talking about the app, Rate My Professor.
Yep.
I remember using that in college. I was like, I wish I would have been able to check out my coaches before I went there, because every coach is going to tell you what you want to hear, right? And it's hard to know, like, it's like reference checking the coach and educating them on the entire recruiting process as well. So I'd love for you to just share for the people who are like, especially for the parents who want to be more educated on the process. Like, how are you guys able to serve student athletes and educate them on the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, like I said, the biggest thing, our bread and butter, and what we're known for is college coach ratings. So we have, college athletes go on, rate their college coach. It gets posted on the site anonymously. However, we're able to verify it on the back end. So we want to make sure that the athlete played for the coach and everything else, but also at the same time, we don't want any repercussions for the athlete. So always anonymous when it's posted on the website. And as you mentioned, like you have Rate My Professor, you have Yelp, you have all these rating sites at this point, and the biggest thing for me in particular was there's just a really huge question mark around college recruiting, especially right now during COVID. And, everybody's kind of a salesman. The player is, the parent is, the coach is, everybody is a salesman on your recruiting trip and during your recruiting process. So this is trying to get down into the nitty gritty of what the student athletes, how they feel about the coaching and the culture and everything else. And coaches have the ability to go to high school coaches, club coaches, see you on game film. They really have a lot of opportunities to learn more about you as well as your level of play with ratings and everything else out there for different sports. But when it comes to coaches or players learning a lot about coaches, it's hard. There's not that many college athletes in general. There's only like 400,000 in the country. And the chances that you're going to know an athlete on the team that you really want to go play for is slim to none. And like I said, when you're on your recruiting trip, the players probably want to get you on the team. So they might not be totally, I shouldn't say honest, because obviously it's not an honesty thing, because obviously everybody has their own experiences, but they might just not say what they would say as they would on an anonymous rating site about the coach. So, that's the big thing. But then we also deal a lot with educating athletes on, again, understanding their recruiting process, understanding college athletics, and just understanding what it takes to be an athlete on and off the field at the collegiate level. But we're talking to athletes, we're talking to parents, we're talking to college coaches about what it takes, what their perspective is on it, what their experiences. We have a series called Recruiting Horror Stories, where we actually get horror stories from recruits and or hosts about what happened on the recruiting trip, whether a coach pulled the scholarship offer, their dad or mom acted out on a recruiting trip and they lost an offer, or whatever else you think can go wrong. We have that series, which is super cool. And then we also just started this really awesome series of panel discussions with college coaches. So we just launched our first HBCU experience coaches panel.
Oh, love that.
About 2 weeks ago. So we had 6 coaches from HBCUs, different sports, different schools on, and we talked to them about what it's like to go to an HBCU, what it's like to be an athlete at an HBCU, what the culture's like, and also just diving into what they look for, what their coaching style is, and everything else. And we got some really great feedback. So we're actually going to start to make that a series. So that's another thing that we're just kind of bringing into our whole realm of understanding college athletics and just education on athletics and recruiting.
I love it. I love that. So cool. So cool.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was really cool. It was like an hour and a half. We had so many questions going in and out, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I saw the email come through, and I was like, "Dang, I've got something scheduled." But I definitely will stay tuned for future events. And such a great idea. And thank you for all that you guys are doing for student athletes. I'm curious to know, like, how has things changed from the impact of COVID-19 for your business? Like, maybe not necessarily nuts and bolts financially, but just operational wise, because the recruiting landscape has just been completely flipped sideways. And I know for us, we typically focus on former athletes, but even for when we do transition workshops, we talk to current athletes, and it's like, dude, there's people who were going to have an opportunity to play in college and now they're not, and I see you guys as somebody who maybe could help them find additional opportunities. But I'm just curious, like, what have you been hearing from the community in terms of the recruiting space?
Yeah, great question. So, it's mixed. We've seen some sports like tennis just totally hit this like awful wall as far as programs getting cut. And just in general, it's really hard for them to recruit. Tennis is primarily a lot, especially at the D1 level, a lot of international student athletes, which, right now is not really, it's hard to travel back and forth from different countries to the US and everything else. So that's going to change. But the biggest thing I would say that the biggest difference is just recruiting, and every coach is doing it differently right now because there's no guidelines for it. There's no set ways. Everybody's forging their own paths and then trying to figure out how to do it. So you see a lot of Zoom calls right now. You're seeing a lot of spots decrease because NCAA offered eligibility back. And if you have a group of high school kids that haven't been able to play in almost a year, and then your team that's at least been able to work out, you probably want your guys back or girls back. You probably want them back on the team. So, it's created a big shortage of positions at the college level. And you're already talking about 7% of high school athletes going on to play in college. That's already a small number. Unfortunately, for this recruiting class, it's going to get a little bit smaller. And I've talked to some kids about going to junior college, deferring a year, doing a post-grad year at a prep school, and really trying to get as creative as possible to A, save money, and B, still give them the best opportunity to have 4 years of eligibility when going into the recruiting process. And that's some of the stuff, we touched on with the HBCU panel as far as how they're looking at COVID recruiting. And they've said it themselves in the panel, and you could go watch it on LRT Sports, but they're like, we're all zoomed out. We're highlight taped out. We're zoomed out. Like, they're looking for kids to call them now. They're like, we just want to talk to kids. Like, we just want to talk on the phone. Like, it's like everybody's so virtual now. It's tough. It's tough out there. But you do have thousands of college coaches that are actually sitting down and watching highlight tapes and relying on your highlight tapes. So now's a perfect chance to email as much as possible.
Yeah. I love that. And what would your advice be? So obviously pick up the phone and call, sounds like, is a good strategy.
Especially for your top 3 schools, I'd say. Like, if you're really serious about a school, I would call at this point.
Yeah. So I hope they're listening to that. What other advice would you give athletes who want to play in college at that next level, just to be educated on how they can find opportunities that will best suit them?
Yeah, great question. Again, I think, although we have college coach ratings and we focus on the sports component of things, I still think, like, listen, you're going to a school, you're committing to it for 4 years, but really for a lifetime. It's always on your resume. It's always part of your network. It's always part of who you are as an individual. So you really want to make sure that you're focusing on picking the school for the school. Coaches come and go. They call it coaching carousel for a reason. You could have a coach leave the day before you get on campus. It just happens, unfortunately. So you want to make sure that you're picking the school because of the school, and then also the teammates when you're on your recruiting trip. That's another huge thing that you want to focus on, because you want to have fun with your teammates, because those are your friends in your friend cup. That's what I like to call it. It's hard to grow your friend cup, but they're your teammates. So, I think the biggest thing is just making sure you're picking the school for the school. And, you could do virtual tours and try to get as creative as possible. Coaches are accepting almost anything for recruiting right now because they're all trying to figure it out as well.
Right.
But, just keep promoting yourself and figuring it out. And I think the name, image, and likeness stuff, keep up with all that, because that's going to be a very interesting shift on the recruiting and just college athletics landscape as well.
Yeah. I love it. Great advice, by the way. Man, what drives you?
I think the biggest thing, I love helping athletes. I love having an athlete come to LRT Sports and basically say that they used a rating to help them decide on where they're going to school, or they read one of our articles and it helped them, understand a little bit more about their recruiting process. So I think for me, ultimately, helping other athletes that have gone through a process that I have been through and I was confused about is really, really cool.
One of the things that we're passionate about here at Second Chance Athletes is really making a difference in the mental health of athletes. What have you heard from the athletes that you work with in terms of their mental health? How are they doing mentally?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And, we've had the opportunity to interview Victoria Garrick as well as Brandi Chastain about the mental health topic specifically. And I think the biggest things that I spoke to them about, we spoke to them about, and also just in general, is COVID's tough. Brandi Chastain's biggest thing was step outside your comfort zone. She actually, for the first time in her life, got a desk job, which she said she never thought she would have. And here she is sitting behind a desk. And, you go from winning, World Cups and doing whatever else that, ripping your shirt off on in front of a whole stadium and doing all these crazy things, to then, oh my goodness, now it's COVID and she wasn't able to coach anymore. So she decided to get a desk job. And she said the biggest thing, she's a coach as well, is you got to step outside your comfort zone. You got to push yourself, especially during a down period. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself nuts, and you got to keep yourself motivated and try to push through and just wake up every day and think of it as a new opportunity as much as you can, even though it's tough. And like you said, you did 6 hours of live stream yesterday. And it's hard when you're not face to face with people and you're live streaming and you're doing all these things, because normally I'm sure you would be out. You would be visiting people, you'd be doing these things, but you're making the most of it to the extent that you can, because that's what you got to do, So just powering through, man. That's all you can do.
I will say one of the things, and I've been enjoying the virtual thing, because I get to connect with people like you, where pre-COVID we would have to be at the same event as speakers, or I'd be speaking at your event for us to connect on this level. Now I'm like, I can connect with you virtually, so it's helping me in that regards. But man, I just miss the energy, and I had a couple in person. It's starting to open up a little bit more. I did a football engagement, and man, I think I probably yelled like I was a college football coach. I was just so excited to be back in person. I was like, man, I missed this,
Yeah.
What's maybe some future development that you guys are exploring? What's the future for your platform look like?
Yeah, I think, we just released this cool new feature where we actually have all the emails and phone numbers provided for the coaches, for athletes to, log on, and then they're able to just see the emails and the phone numbers of all the college coaches in the country, which is a step in the direction of we're trying to provide more information for athletes for every single school, and then coach on top of that. So really trying to become the place where people can go to, regardless of what level they're at or anything. If they're interested in a school, they can come to us and kind of learn more. And that's part of our mission with the HBCU experience that we have going on. We're planning on doing that with junior college. We're planning on doing that with some D3 schools, and just allowing athletes to understand that it's not just about going to Power 5 school. It's not just about going to a school because of the name brand. It's not just because of an ego or whatever it may be. It's really about deciding for yourself and putting yourself first and making the decision based on what you think is best for your fit, for the culture, for social life, for sport, for everything else. So that's what we're really trying to do and provide. So that's the direction that we're moving in. And again, we're just trying to make things easier for athletes to have all that information at their fingertips, and realizing that recruiting process is different for every single sport. There's no written rule book. And I can guarantee you could talk to 10 football players. I could talk to 10 soccer players, tennis players. Everybody's going to have a different recruiting experience. There's no two same recruiting experiences. So it's really hard to have a quote unquote rule book. There's things that you can follow, but you can't have an exact rule book on it, because there's going to be a situation where one kid is so good that he's going to have every college coach responding to him, and then one kid who's fighting tooth and nail to get one college coach to respond to him. So it's just really, really different, and helping athletes understand that, and understand that not to give up, and it's okay to have all these different experiences.
That's interesting. A couple of questions popped in my mind when you're talking about that. I was just thinking about, I'd love to learn more about the customer care side of things. Like, is it like they get connect? I know it's not, but like in my mind, I know I originally was like, oh, people just get connected on this app and they're just all on their own to try to figure it out. What support do you guys provide to make sure that people are understanding how to leverage the technology to really have the best situation possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't connect athletes and coaches directly. So we're a little bit different in that regard, because we do provide, we're all in the information, we're all in the education. So what we do is we have all the free content. And then we also have a membership where we basically allow people to sign up. It's $9.99 a month, and people can log on, and there's frequently asked recruiting questions. There are, again, the emails and the phone numbers of all the college coaches in the country. There is more content, exclusive content that literally will say, hey, here's an email template. Here's a situation of how you even go to an athletic website to fill out a recruiting questionnaire. Here is like the most bare bones stuff, but we try to focus on sport specific. So again, we like to let people know not every recruiting process is the same for every person, but also for every sport. So things will be more in common, obviously, with football players that recruited get recruited to FBS versus FCS versus both, versus a soccer player that's getting recruited to D2, D1, or both. So
right.
again, it's just more about tailoring the experience to, hey, you know what, you're going through these specific things, and here are the things that you need to look out for. Are there already 10 goalies on the team? That's an unrealistic number, but you know what I mean. Because if you're a goalie, and you don't look at the roster and there's already 10 girls, and you get to, you know, preseason and they decide that they're going to cut goalies, and you're sitting there like, well, I was recruited. Well, too bad. You know, if you don't have a scholarship, it's almost like, okay, we're still cutting you. You know, like there's so many things that people just don't realize.
Okay. We're still cutting.
And I'm sure you've heard of situations like that happen before too.
Gosh,
I mean,
all the time. I mean,
exactly.
like if we really want to go that route, I know this is a rabbit trail. I'm sorry, guys, but I know like this is just real talk, right? So, like, let's just go there for a second. So, how have you ever had to tell Johnny and Susie that their child isn't as much of a superstar as they think that he or she is?
Yeah.
If so, like how does that go?
Well, you know, not great. I think it's a humbling experience for all parties, right? You know, at the end of the day, again, I'll say it, 7% of high school athletes are going on to play in college. Doesn't mean that you're not going to if you're listening to this. Doesn't mean that you're not quote unquote good enough. It just might mean that you're not going D1. You know, like you just might not. You might be playing in NAIA school. You might go to junior college like for 2 years. And those are all great opportunities. Playing a college sport is playing a college sport at the end of the day. But you know, you have to just be realistic with yourself. And, you know, especially with recruiting processes that deal with outside of high school sports, it's really hard for parents and athletes to understand that, like, playing their high school sport and not doing the club sports, sometimes it's not going to get you recruited if you're not like the best of the best at your high school and breaking records and doing whatever. But, you know, parents get pissed sometimes. They do. You know, they get upset. And then it's like, you have to show them the facts, though. It's like, hey, if you have a track and field athlete and you think that you're going to go D1, let's look at how these track and field athletes are competing in the event that you want to go compete in.
Right.
Are you hitting those numbers? No.
Yeah.
Are you watching an Alabama football game on the weekend thinking, yeah, I can tackle that guy? And you're 5'10", 150? No.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a very humbling experience for all parties, I think. But again, just because you might not be good enough to play at a certain division or a certain level. And honestly, I shouldn't even say division or level, because you go look at some leagues, there's some bad teams and some really great leagues, and you could go end up playing in a really great league against some really great players, but you just might not be on the best team. But that's all a part of figuring out what is important to you. Are you okay with being a 4-year bench player at Alabama and winning national championships, or would you prefer to be a 4-year starter at a D3 school All-American?
You can't say that. You can't listen. Number one, I played at CMU, so you can't. If you're gonna use a national championship, you gotta say that. Number two, I live in Atlanta now, so I learned the hard way that we don't talk about Alabama we don't talk you know. That. So the Bulldogs. So if the Bulldogs win the national championship,
okay. If the Dogs win, but are you okay with being riding the bench for 4 years? And again, this isn't to say it's prescriptive of you're either this or that. There's a million different things that you can be, but it could be that. Or would you prefer to say, hey, I'm going to be a D3, All-American for 4 years and always see the field? Like, it really just depends on what you want, and you got to be realistic,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen people be unrealistic throughout the years. Do you have any insight on that?
Oh, you're gonna turn it back on me?
Yeah.
Hey, look, I got control over the room, so I can easily just. You're all on your own. No, man, I do. I have a lot of thoughts. I think what you're describing is the actual data, the metrics. You would take opinion out of it. That's the hardest thing. Is everybody thinks little Johnny and Susie is the best. Unless you have one of those hardcore driven parents who thinks little Johnny and Susie are the worst, right? Like, which that happens as well, right? Like, I mean, my dad was sort of like that, where he was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if you could play at Georgia. I was gonna say Alabama, look. And then because of this, and this. And so I get it. I think look at the data. Um, when I say data, I mean like let's take track. Like let's see if you're qualifying at the times that their runners are. Are you an actual asset to that team? And if so, how can I mean to me, I think through the lens of marketing. So what's your unique selling proposition, right? And like as an athlete, if you're trying to get recruited and you know that it's in a competitive team where they only have a certain amount of slots left, especially if you want to be a scholarship athlete, go with the advantage of what you uniquely bring to the table. So for me, for example, I was a D lineman. My height was very marketable to football teams, but also the fact that I was a D lineman and I ran 110 hurdles. Because you might find D linemen who do shot put, but not that do 110 hurdles. So that actually helped me get recruited when they're like, oh, whoa, he's got a lot of potential because he's big and he's agile. So, and then I sent them my track times as well. And so, again, not trying to there's a billion different ways to get recruited, but the point in the thinking process that I would suggest is what makes you different, not from your perspective, but truly from your results that you produce on the field, on the track, or whatever sport you play. So that would be my thing.
Yeah. And again, it's almost like from a parent's perspective, the best way to put it is it's like applying for a job. It's part numbers game and it's part skill set and it's part fit. There's a lot of different things. Like there might be a coach one year that's just not looking for your kid's position and you happen to be in that recruiting class. And you could either say,
that's true.
Okay, I'm fine with being a player that could maneuver and do anything that the coach says and be as coachable as possible, or I'm going to say, nope, I want to be a pitcher and I don't want anything else besides to be a pitcher. So you have to move on from that school. So, I think those are the things that people don't talk about enough with recruiting. They just think like, oh, if I'm going to get recruited, every coach is going to reach out to me and everyone's going to be swooning over me. Like, no, like you have to reach out a lot, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
And you got to you're applying for a job at the end of the day.
Yeah. Last question. I know we're kind of getting close to our time here, but one of the things that I wanted to see is, so I get the recruiting process thing, but I know you guys have content as well that you offer for free, workshops you mentioned. What's your level of support look like after an athlete gets placed? Like, what's the longevity of someone who uses your software to be able to, like, how long are you engaging with your athletes?
Yeah, so we have athletes that start like sometimes in middle school. So they'll be starting 6th, 7th grade if they're interested in recruiting process, primarily high school student athletes. And then we do have a certain level of engagement with college student athletes, of course, because if they're looking to transfer, if they're looking about NCAA rule changes, we have a girl who writes, or she's a woman, I should say, she's not a girl, but she is a woman, and she writes these incredible articles for us because she's getting her PhD in NCAA policy. No, I did not know that was a thing until I met her. But she writes these awesome pieces on NLI changes, NIL changes, name, image, and likeness, not letter of intent. And then also about, transfer portal, anything that's going on with COVID updates as far as waivers and everything else that is happening in the college sports world is very real time. So we have college athletes using us for that component of things. And also anybody that's thinking about transferring is also using our website in order to figure out what coach they want to play for, because presumably what happened the first time around didn't work out. And then we also have a level of assistant coaches that are actually using our platform as well to see what coaches they want to coach under. So we also have that as well. And then, like I mentioned to you, we touch on mental health stuff. We just posted an article about why athletes make better employees. Although it's not like the be all end all of our website, we do provide content on that to try and make it interesting for all levels of student athletes or former student athletes. But I think the biggest thing is, and why I like to provide that content, is I want parents to think outside the box. So when they come to our website, I want them to think like, oh, wow, like my student athlete, if they're going to be a college athlete, it's actually better for them to, apply in the workforce. It's different things that they should be thinking about. So, I think providing those upfront topics for people to be able to view and see are super important for us, because we want them to understand the scope of everything that's at stake when you are committing to play a college sport.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Such great. Appreciate everything that you guys do to support athletes and coaches. I learned some new things on this call, and I have a greater respect for your work. If people are like, man, I love everything they do, how can they reach out and connect with you guys?
Yeah, so LRTsports.com, just visit LRTsports.com. You could scroll down to the bottom of the page, or you could do the hyphen, either one. We have both URLs, so we kind of bounce around. And then you could scroll down at the bottom, and it goes to contact us. Guess where that email goes? To me. So I will be answering directly. Or we're at LRT Sports on every single, platform: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And we're updating things as much as possible. So we're always kind of, posting new news, whatever is happening, unfortunately, dead period updates, which seems to be the biggest thing right now. We're through January 1st now, which is unfortunate. But all those good things, LRT Sports, just, that's how you can find us.
Love it. I want to encourage you guys to go support them and share with other athletes that other coaches that It's such a phenomenal resource and tool. And I just want to say thank you one more time for everything that you do. I know it's not always the easiest thing, but it definitely is so rewarding to serve student athletes and deal with helicopter parents and all that stuff. So
yeah,
really appreciate your work. Any last words you want to leave us with?
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And, I am so impressed with everything that you guys are doing. And like I said, we send your information out to our interns that we have had throughout the years, which is over 150 now, because we run an internship program, which is a lot. So we love what you're doing as well. And thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Guys, show her some love in the comments. Thank her for sharing all her brilliance. If you're watching the replay of this, make sure you go check out lrtsports.com. The link is right there on the screen and in the chat as well. And be sure to still share this or host a watch party if you're watching on Facebook. Want to encourage you guys, if you have not yet went and got your copy of the book, or purchase 10 copies for your favorite high school, college, pro team, want to encourage you to do so. The book is called Who Am I After Sports? An Athlete's Roadmap to Discover New Purpose and Live Fulfilled. In it, I share my true challenges with mental health, how I overcame suicidal ideation and attempts after career-ending back injury. And then we share our signature process, our athlete's transition roadmap, which helps you detach your identity from your sport, find your highest purpose, and live more fulfilled. And so whether you're a current athlete or a former athlete, or you're just someone who wants to move your life forward, this book can help you. And when you purchase, 100% of the proceeds within the first week will go to support our inner city youth sports program. So thank you so much. We so appreciate you. And till next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.